Hi, I'm Fred Schultz, and I'm here to ask for your vote for President of the United States. I'm a lawyer, I'm an activist, I'm a human rights activist, I'm an abolitionist, and I stick up for people. Our country has been locking up millions of people wrongfully for decades. For decades. Our country was founded to be the land of the free, not the land of the jailed. We used to be a free country. For the first 150 years that our nation was around, we had freedom to do whatever we wanted as long as we weren't hurting anyone. That's why our nation was founded, was to bring back our human rights to freedom. This doesn't just mean freedom to go and buy a candy bar. It means freedom to do to your own body whatever you want as long as you're not hurting anyone else. And it means freedom to engage in any consensual activity with another adult as long as you're not hurting somebody else. The government has no right to get involved when in consensual or victimless activity. As Thomas Jefferson said, who wrote the Declaration of Independence and most of the Constitution, said, President Jefferson said, "The legitimate powers of government extend only to such acts as are injurious to others." I'll repeat, the legitimate powers of government extend to such acts only as are injurious to others. Our government has no right to lock us up for this, to turn us into slaves for all these laws they put on the books that are unconstitutional. And I am the only candidate who understands deeply that these laws are unconstitutional. They violate our rights to life, liberty, the pursuit of happiness, and many more rights. None of the other candidates believe that these laws are unconstitutional. Therefore, if they want to make any changes, and I'm not saying they do, although Bernie says that he believes in ending marijuana prohibition, but his solution only ends the federal prohibition, but he allows states to pass whatever laws they want. Under my solution, day one I'm in office, we legalize everything that isn't hurting someone else. We legalize all victimless crimes. Drugs, sex work, pornography, erotica, whatever you call it, gambling. Even in some states it's illegal to go around topless as a woman. We're going to change that. Free the nipple. We're going to stop all these arrests. And not only that will I free the 2 million people in jail for victimless crimes, I will also stop arresting over 10 million people a year for victimless crimes. We have 13 million arrests every year in this country. About 10 million of them are for victimless or consensual crimes. I will stop those arrests. And I will pardon the 70 million people convicted of such crimes who can never get work again, who can never get legal work again, who often resort to real crimes. Now, as I said, I am the only candidate who knows these crimes are unconstitutional. They're not even allowed to be crimes. It's absurd that they have called them crimes. So the second I get in office, I will spend every bit of effort it takes to figure out who is in jail for a victimless crime and who has been convicted of them, and to pardon everyone. That is my goal, to free the slaves. These people are slaves in jail. They're not just rotting in jail. I mean, they are rotting in jail, but they're not just sitting there usually. They're actually enslaved to either help the jails keep going, they use them as slave labor, or they also are slaves for corporations that pay them a few pennies per hour instead of $20 an hour. So I will end all of these victimless crimes. This has been a travesty, a nightmare. It is wasting not just 80 billion a year. That's, yes, 80 billion a year. But imagine all these people who could be doing good things with their lives. And most of them would be. Most of them aren't in for hurting anyone. And that's what we're gonna change. They can work now. They can have real lives. They can support their families. They can have families. Right now, so many of their families have had to go onto welfare. Now, besides ending all victimless crimes, I will also end all the wars, close all the overseas bases, bring all of our troops home to protect us here where we need them. All of this war has not brought us more safety like we thought it would. I didn't think it would, but I mean many people did. All of this war, the more that we attack, the more we get attacked, the more people attack us. It actually turns out that these wars are the main inspiration for the terrorists. Instead of getting them to stop, it's actually encouraging more. And remember, it's not just about, the problem with ISIS isn't just in Iraq. No, and Syria. No, we have to deal with, obviously, terrorists who have been inspired all over the world by these people. So the more we kill there, the more that terrorists living, the more people are inspired to do terrorism wherever they live in the world. God forbid. So the best way to protect us is to bring all of our troops home to protect us here. We also need to all arm ourselves. We do. And also, I do believe that the police should have the military weapons that Obama is trying to take away, but not use them to fight victimless crimes like they wanted. They originally got these weapons, these tanks and stuff, so they could roll through drug dealers' homes and roll through drug users' homes with tanks. Enough. No. And they've been using them to crush protests, peaceful protests for our human rights. No, we won't allow that anymore. But we do need them to have these weapons to defend, to protect us against terrorists. That's a very good idea. It's a very good idea. So, the final thing is we will take all the money that we save, and also we will start an extra special tax. Well, let me explain this. My tax policy you will love. If you earn under $80,000 a year, you'll have no taxes. If you earn under $80,000 a year, you will have no taxes. That's about 50 to 60% of the American population will have no taxes, about 50%. Will have zero taxes. That is wonderful. This will help. How did I pick that number? Well, that's where the, quote, upper middle class begins, but that's not it. The reason I picked it is because that's the amount of money that it takes to raise a family, in my mind, where you're not stressing, where you have a wife and maybe a few kids. I don't want taxes to have to be a reason that people don't have families. And when people are struggling every day and taxes is a major expense, we can't have that. Not when there are very wealthy people in this country. And that's what gets me to the second. Oh yeah, so first of all, we will have a 10% flat tax above $80,000 income. So if you earn $100,000 a year, you'll pay $2,000 in tax, because you'll pay 10% of the $20,000. If you earn $200,000, you'll pay $12,000 in tax. So these are great tax rates. Now, it would be across the board for corporations, for individuals, and for nonprofits. These nonprofits are just a scam, as you heard from this recent, not all of them, a lot of them are very good, but as you heard from this recent Wounded Warrior Project, how they spend less than 10% of the money they raise on helping wounded warriors, and they do very little effort on programming. It's all just a gung-ho goal to bring in more money. No, we will tax the nonprofits. Even those nonprofits that are decent, they are now often huge. We can't sit around and go and try to figure out which is which. No, we are taxing all nonprofits equally, and that will be same as the income tax everyone else has. And then also I want to have a special wealth tax. Now, instead of income, wealth, because that's where the real money is taxing wealth, not income. Now, we'll do away, God willing, we'll do away with all other property taxes and sales taxes, which are regressive, taxing poor people more than wealthy people. And instead, we will fund all projects locally and federally from this federal money, which will be divvied up. This will make it so that police won't have to be running around giving out tickets for speeding and that kind of thing. to stay so that they have money for themselves and for the town. No, it'll all be divvied up from the national budget, and all students will pay the exact same amount per student per year, and the same amount per teacher per year nationwide. Well, everybody will have an equal and wonderful education. But not only will we make amazing education, will we make public schools extremely wonderful again, and we will do away with standardized testing, at least most standardized testing. We might need one a year just to gauge if they're really being taught anything. But we will not have tricky standardized tests. We won't have standardized tests that put a premium on time. We want to give the kids time to work out the answers if they need it. It's silly to just make it a time pressure test when they could figure it out if they had a little more time. We need to give them time to figure out what the answer is if they need it. But my point is, we'll take the money we save from closing the bases and from freeing the slaves, and we'll sell the bases too. And we will take that money and use it for free college, not just public education, but private, free college, all college. We'll forgive all student loans. We'll have free law school, free med school. Now, in return for this free law school, free med school, and free college, we'll have to have maybe a year or two of public service. Would be really good. Maybe say 2 years of public service not just as a thank you, but it'll help keep our country afloat. I love that. I'm very excited about that idea. And finally, we will fix the infrastructure. Bernie wants to spend $1 trillion. Well, the civil engineers in our nation say it's going to take $3.6 trillion to fix the infrastructure. So I want to spend $3.6 trillion to fix our infrastructure, which is exactly what it takes. We don't want to lose one life due to a bad bridge or crumbling roads. If you lose one life, it's worth that 3.6 trillion. I mean, if we save one life, it's worth spending that 3.6 trillion, and we will save many lives. And it's not just that, it'll help our nation prosper. We also should have free Wi-Fi really for everyone nationwide. That'll help us prosper immensely. But I want to stop this big brother tapping us. I want to make it illegal for the government to ever tap anyone unless they have a warrant, and I want to make it illegal for the phone companies to tap us all, or to keep any records. And the main way to stop this is not just stopping the NSA program; it's stopping the DEA, the Drug Enforcement Agency. We must stop that. Their surveillance program dwarfs the NSA program, according to the New York Times. It dwarfs it. So we must stop the DEA program also. Mass surveillance. I will end all mass surveillance, and I will enforce laws which say that companies are not allowed, just like the government is not allowed to tap you, companies aren't either, and I will enforce that. We will have no more of these apps that follow where you go, your every move. No, that we will stop immediately when you elect me, if you elect me, please, so we can stop this mass surveillance and all these wars. I will bring all the troops home. Bernie wants to keep 10,000 troops in Afghanistan. He wants to crush ISIS, as he said it, in Iraq. Well, this Iraq war has been going on for 13 years, and the Afghanistan war has been going on for 15 years. Now, Bernie and Hillary don't like to talk about this, but the Afghanistan war was also a big mistake, and I oppose that. I oppose doing the Afghanistan war, and I oppose the Iraq war, and I still do, but I oppose them from day one. So if you say, oh well, you're not Hillary, what have you done with your life? Well, I've done a lot of law, and I've been a human rights activist, and I founded a rabbinical school by donating the money when I had a good amount of money to start a rabbinical school. It didn't go too well when the Fed several years ago kept on raising interest rates until they destroyed the market. They kept raising the rates, I don't know if you remember, about 15 years ago, higher and higher and higher and higher until they destroyed not only the market but our nation's economy for a long time. And the world's economy suffered a major shock. Millions of people lost their homes, their jobs, their lives. This was because the Federal Reserve decided that stocks were going up too much and they wanted to stop it. Can you believe that? They said that stocks were going up too quickly. They wanted to stop it, and boy did they stop it. There was one of the biggest crashes in history. And that didn't have to happen. They caused that. They purposely caused it. They said, oh, we were surprised it got so big. Yeah, well, when you cause a crash, you have to expect it's going to get big. Anyway, now besides all of that, I do believe that all of these people fleeing across our southern border, most of them are refugees. And yes, most of them are refugees. Of course, some are not just fleeing violence, but also poverty. But if instead, for these last 30 years, they are fleeing, the trouble is they are fleeing for their lives from our war on drugs. Our nation, which I have been fighting against this war on drugs for 30 years, since I was an intern in high school, interning for, many of you in New Hampshire know Judd Gregg. He was a congressman and then a governor, and I was interning for him. And even then, I was very opposed to the war on drugs. Way back then. Now, I spoke to everybody I could meet in Washington at the time, telling them that they were making a big mistake. That this was not only going to kill people in third world countries, strafing peasants with guns, but that it was going to lead to massive crime in our nation. Because when you make something illegal, the value goes up. And when you make drugs illegal and the value goes up, people need their drugs. So that's when they start doing crimes. So they've caused this whole crime wave in our nation and crime wave south of our border just by having drug prohibition and drug prescription, which I will do away with. We have a right to do whatever we want to our own bodies. We have a right to buy any, quote, drug we want. That means without a prescription, that means no. So this will end the refugee crisis. It will end these people's horror of their lives. Now, of course, we can't just end our own laws, our own prohibition laws. We now, because the U.S. has been fighting to put prohibition laws throughout the world, we're going to actually have to fight to end all of these prohibition laws worldwide, or else the violence and robbery and all of that will continue. Now, on top of that, we have not had any drug treatment. We've been wasting all the money that we take in on taxes on locking up innocent people. So we don't have drug treatment. We also have not even been prosecuting real crimes with victims. We've been prosecuting them only a tiny amount because they've been spending so much time and effort prosecuting victimless crimes. So that's why we have 500,000 untested rape kits in this country. After a woman or a man gets raped, they do a test so they can have DNA on file. 500,000 of these they have never tested. The woman goes through after being raped, goes through another difficulty of having a swab of the DNA taken from her, and she only endures this. It's only correct to have her endure this if we're testing them. You can't have a woman do that and then not do the test. Not only is it horrible, but rape is a serial crime. So these people that we're not catching are outgoing doing many, many, many more rapes, and it's the most unreported crime. So, and south of the border, the crime rate is skyrocketing. The murder rate, they have multiples the murder rate of us. 3, 4, 5, 6, 10 times our murder rate. And yes, it's true, in the U.S. we have about 10,000 people killed every year, but the main way to stop most of those murders is to end drug prohibition. Prohibition is causing the crime wave throughout our nation. It just is. Because it makes the drugs valuable. If you take away the prohibition and the prescription, the value of most of these drugs plummets. And then you don't have to have people out doing crimes to get them. Also, the added benefit is, if you're a drug user, you know what drug you're getting. You know exactly what drug you're getting. And you know how pure it is and its strength. You could select different drugs in a store, all kinds of different recipes. We could have choice to do with our bodies and minds as we like, just as we were supposed, just as our nation had. We're not talking about legalizing drugs. We're talking about re-legalizing drugs. Re-legalizing drugs. Drugs were legal. All victimless crimes were legal in our nation for the first 150 years. And then they started to crack down on all these things. And that's when America started going down the tubes. It's true that wages have not gone up in 40 years, but the other coincidence is 40 years ago, in 1970, was when they passed all these much more draconian drug laws. And that's when they started with the mandatory minimums, was in 86. These drug laws are what has been ruining not just people's lives and not just causing crime wave, but ruining our economy. Because when you have not just the millions of people locked up, not just the 70 million who I'll pardon who can't work, but we're talking all these police out doing unproductive, not fighting real crime, but beyond all of that, we have the courts, our whole court system, we have tied up with these silly crimes, we have lawyers wasting their lives, we have judges wasting their lives, we have millions of man hours wasted, millions of people's lives wasted daily because of these evil laws. And that's destroying our nation. We must be firing on all cylinders if we want to compete and do well compared to the rest of the world. We have to be firing on all cylinders. And this isn't allowing it. Now, I forgot, on my tax plan, besides taxing income, we will also tax wealth. There will be a 4%, or I'm proposing a 4% tax on net worth over $6 million, and 6% tax on net worth over $100 million, and 8% tax on net worth or company size over $1 billion. So this money we can use for all these great things. As I said, free college, free housing, free law school, free med school, free food for people, of course, free medical care. Now, I do want a hybrid system, not just what they call single payer, although I do certainly want single payer, but I want to have a whole, what I call a hybrid system. What I mean is we would have single payer until 2 p.m., say, and then after 2 p.m. the doctors could work at market rates if they wanted. So that way they could actually get market rates for their work so that they can. That's only right. We shouldn't have professions where people can't get market rates. On the other hand, we want everybody's health care to be covered. So this way you do it both ways. And then if you want to have extra medical care done or that isn't covered, or if you want a specific doctor maybe, things like that, then you could go after 2 p.m. to the doctor of your choice for a fee. Anyway, and then finally, besides ending drug prohibition and stopping the refugee crisis that way, we must have walls on both borders. We must build walls on both borders and have north and south, Mexico and Canada, and have much more increased surveillance of what is coming into the nation in terms of searching container ships and that kind of thing. Our ports are a big hole in our security system in this nation. So when my point is, this will create jobs. When we're building two walls, it will create jobs, but it will also make us much safer. We need to know who's coming into our nation every second and only allow in who we want. Now, I do believe we should greatly increase the number of immigrants, legal immigrants. I do believe we should greatly increase that number, but there's the number that we've picked is arbitrarily low. And also, we must remember that the economy and jobs are not a zero-sum game. What I mean by that is the more immigrants you have coming in, it really does stimulate the economy immensely. Especially, they're very dedicated to working hard and buying homes, and will just stimulate the economy immensely. Immigrants have always been the backbone of our nation, and they still are. And day one I'm in office, I will pardon everyone convicted of a victimless crime, and I will let everybody, all the immigrants, stay, because they are really, most of them, refugees. Those who aren't refugees are fleeing poverty, which we would have ended by now if we hadn't been focusing so much on killing them down there. But we must have economic development worldwide, and we can play a big role in that. We have 1 billion people starving in the world. In our nation, we have about 50 million people starving as we speak right now. That is a crime. In a wealthy world and in the wealthiest nation in the world, we don't just have a responsibility to help feed our people. When there's 1 billion people in the world starving, we have a responsibility to help every one of them. When there are millions and hundreds of millions of people without any health care, we have a responsibility to try to help them too. And what we must understand is helping other people, it doesn't just help them. It is true, it does help us, because then you'll have not only a more joyous world, but a more prosperous world, and a more peaceful world, and a freer world. So please, 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 we gotta stop. We have millions of people homeless in our country. We can't allow this anymore. Every one of them deserves a safe place to live, and not just a shelter where they don't have any privacy. Not just a shelter, a public shelter, which not only isn't safe, they usually aren't safe, they often aren't safe, but it's not just about safety, it's about privacy. It's about being able to have a family, have a girlfriend, start a family. You can't do that when you just can't do that when you have no privacy. So we will make sure that everybody has their own safe home to live in. Now, we will also, God willing, if you elect me, have a guaranteed minimum income. And that means that everybody should have enough money coming in to pay their basic necessities. Now, I do believe that we should have a very high minimum wage of about, say, $20 an hour would be great, but I would settle for 15 right now, but it should be more like 20. It's been part of my campaign for 15 years to raise the minimum wage to $20 an hour. But besides just raising the minimum wage, and I want to have a guaranteed minimum income that's approximately half of the minimum wage. So it would be just enough to barely survive, although we would also have, as I said, free housing and food. So this would just be some spending money to be able to start a life again if they have no money, to be able to make sure that they have a decent survival. So that is the plan, of a guaranteed basic minimum income. Now, where would all of this money come from? Yes, it would come from the top 1%. The top 1% of our nation is approximately a net worth of 8 million, and I would be, or 7.5 million, and my tax plan would start around 6 million. So we're pretty much taxing about 1.2% of the population or so. Now, you can say, well, that's not fair. Those people earned that money. Well, first of all, maybe they earned it. Maybe they didn't. Maybe they stole it. I mean, maybe, who knows how people got money. But yes, they did earn it. But the way to look at this is that the only reason that God puts us on this earth is to make the world a better place. That is the only reason God puts us on this earth, and it's the only reason God allows us to continue living, and it's the only reason God allows us to earn a dime, is so we can help others with the money we earn. And it just so happens a lot of the time the only reason that people earn a different amount than others is because of pure luck. And if they have been lucky enough to benefit from our nation and our world making them wealthy, then they owe back to helping make the world a better place. Now, I understand, of course, a lot of times people don't want to pay taxes, but that's also because they feel like there's a lot of waste, and they feel like it's being used just to lock people up and for wars. But they'll feel much better about paying taxes if they know it's not being wasted, and if they know it's not being used to lock people up wrongfully or to launch wars that are useless. So to our troops, I say thank you for what all you do every second defending us. You are very strong, and we can never, ever forget that, what you've done for us, and we must always make sure that you have the best medical care and everything like that in the world also, like everyone else, but certainly for veterans. But everybody needs exceptional medical care. But as far as our troops, they can't take these wars anymore. They've been fighting for 15 years now. This is much longer than World War II ever was. They're tired. They're at their wits' end. Their families can't take this anymore, and it's not helping anything. So we must just bring them home to protect us here, and they will be safer too. We sent them. We fell in. Bush, the idiot, fell into Bin Laden's trap. Bin Laden set a trap by taking down the Twin Towers. He thought that it would inspire us to war, and he was right. And we walked into an ambush, and we have to now get out of the ambush and bring our troops home to protect us here from terrorists. And also, please, I think it's very important for everybody to arm themselves if they at all can afford to protect not only themselves but their neighbors. Also learn how to fire a gun. Yes, we need background checks. It's very important, but that's not the main issue. And yes, we should stop